will focus on public service, growth for women in public service, and ways to encourage women to pursue public service careers. I would also like to remind our audience that Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a nonpartisan organization. The panelists today are present in their capacity as current women in public service. Their presence should not be construed as an endorsement by the sorority, as our organization does not make endorsements. Okay, so let's get into the introductions. Please welcome Genesee County Commissioner of the 4th District, Dr. Beverly Brown. Commissioner Brown was appointed to a two-year term to the Genesee County Board of Commissioners during a special meeting on January 27, 2023. During her 38 years in Genesee County, she has lived and or worked in the city of Flint, Flint Township, Burton, Monday Township, Grand Blake Township. Following a successful career in banking, she transitioned to education and worked as the school and business liaison at the Genesee Area Skills Center, now known as the Genesee Career Institute. In this role, Dr. Brown cultivated numerous business relationships to help fuel career programming at the school. Her passion for developing youth led her to serve as president of the Fair Winds Girl Scout Council between 2003 and 2006, where she provided leadership for more than 10,000 girls and 4,000 volunteers among 4 counties. She was also president of the Flint Women's Forum and a Golden Life member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Commissioner Brown and her husband, Willie, have been married for over 30 years. They currently live in the city of Flint and are active members of Grace Emmanuel Baptist Church under the leadership of senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Raybon Turner. So welcome, Commissioner Brown, and thank you for your service.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, Anita.
Absolutely. Now, our next phenomenal guest is Dr. Pamela Pugh. Dr. Pugh brings 25 years of invaluable experience as a public health expert and a dedicated advocate for environmental justice. Dr. Pugh is currently serving as the president of the Michigan Board of Education. Dr. Pugh's background in public service includes 14 years with the Saginaw County Health Department. Dr. Pugh played a pivotal role in the fight against childhood lead poisoning in Saginaw, Michigan, by successfully reducing elevated blood lead levels in the children of that great city. Dr. Pugh also was appointed by Karen Weaver as the Chief Public Health Advisor in response to the Flint water crisis. Before becoming president of the Michigan State Board of Education, she stood alongside Detroit school children in the right to literacy lawsuit, urging the state to guarantee students fundamental rights to an education with access to teachers, good teachers, and current books. Dr. Pugh is a member of the World Outreach Campus Church of God in Christ under the leadership of Bishop Pearlie Coleman Jr., and she is also a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And thank you, Dr. Pugh, as well for your service.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So we're going to get right into the questions, but I just want to note some stats before we begin into our questions, just to show our audience the urgency for women to serve in public service capacities. According to the February 22nd, 2024 publication by Statista Research Department, There were a record number of women elected to federal and state office in the 2022 midterm election, making the 118th Congress the most diverse in U.S. history. Women have been historically underrepresented in the halls of power in the United States. And while significant progress has been made in the last decades, the U.S. trails behind many similar developed and less developed nations. As of 2022, the U.S. was outranked by 25 other countries in the Global Gender Parity Index. And this is an index which benchmarks national gender gaps on the political, economic, and social criteria. Countries including Rwanda, Namibia, and Sweden all outrank the United States in regards to gender equity. According to the January 10th, 2024 publication by Statista Research Department, in 2020, the United States saw 7 women run for the role of president of the United States, statistically more than any other year. As of January 2024, only 2 women had campaigned in the presidential race, which was Mary Ann Williamson and, of course, Nikki Haley. So getting into the questions after all of that, I'm going to pose this question to Dr. Pugh. What has changed in our current political environment to have such a decrease in women going out for public office?
Well, I think that people are more and more fed up with the status quo and business as usual. And we want sincere leaders who are working to help the everyday people. And so we are showing up and we are demanding action, not just rhetoric. We hear statistics and people have intellectualized the statistics, but there are those of us who are fed up and are standing up, taking action, and pushing back on the status quo. And we are showing up, fighting to get to the ballot box, get through the ballot to get to the table to make change.
Thank you. Very good. Fighting to get to the table. Absolutely. Commissioner Brown.
Well, I think the current climate is been a little chaotic. There's a lot of mistrust that's been floating around. Some people may feel intimidated about getting into the game of politics, given that mistrust and some of the chaos. But we have to realize that we have to live within the system that we have. And if we don't like the system, we have to get into the game and change the system. And, I agree with what Dr. Pugh just said. We have to really have courageous people who step up, because we can't continue to live with the status quo. A lot of people fought long and hard to get to where we are today. And so we can't let that fight be in vain.
Absolutely. I just watched the Netflix show Shirley, which was an outstanding movie, and I encourage all of our viewers to check that out. Just how she walked into a room, it seemed like it threatened the other people around her, which was mostly, middle-aged white men. And because of her presence, I just think she was the catalyst for a lot of change that happened up on the Hill. And just to see the struggle she had to go through, all of the bureaucracy and all of the extra that I think her counterparts probably did not have to go through, was inspiring to see. So I agree with you both. Change is necessary. So, Commissioner Brown, have you ever been discouraged in serving as a public servant?
Well, I've only been in a public servant role for about 15 months, 16 months maybe.
Mhm.
And so far, no, I have not been discouraged. I think being in this game, you have to understand that there's a mission of improving society. And that's a task you just can't get tired of doing. I don't get tired of doing it. So no, I haven't gotten discouraged. And I have a strong faith and just trust in a higher power to get me through when I do hit those bumpy roads. So no, I haven't been discouraged so far.
Very good. Dr. Pugh, has
So
anyone, ha- same question to you.
So I've served on the State Board of Education for 9 years, elected statewide to do that. And, as I seek a federal office, I will have to say that, of course, there are those days when it just feels like the deck is stacked against against progress, and especially against progress for those who are in the working class, those of us who are not the moneyed and don't have the wealthy lobbyists that support our efforts. And I will say that it does at times get discouraging, but to Dr. Brown's point, we don't stay there. We know that we're showing up because there are these difficult issues that are facing families, and we know that we have to be the voice for the everyday people. And so, yes, there are those times when it feels as if, um, it's hard to work for the families that we go to serve, but we press on.
Very good. And in those in public servant positions, you may come across people who not you have to serve them because you represent them and you're in that position, but they might not always uh like you or your positions that you hold. But you have to be a servant of the people. Do you sometimes find that difficult to when you know you're going into an area that they really don't appreciate you, but you still have to come across as you have to serve with a servant's heart.
Right. Change is slow, and we know we are serving people who have urgent needs. I look at the statistics of infant mortality. Let me just say infant mortality, where here in Michigan, when we look at the infant mortality, I'm sorry, when we look at our infant mortality rates for Black babies, it's 15 deaths for every live birth. That was statistics for 2021, compared to 4.2 deaths, babies that die per live birth to white families. We know that Black women make 67 cents to the dollar of their white male counterparts. And when we look at other statistics, we can see that looking at infant mortality rates, looking at the violence in our community, those rates, and then looking at the stressors of Black women that they are facing, as well as the stressors in our communities that are linked to these poor outcomes for our communities, where you have gun violence for our young children 5 times the rate of for Black children than non Black children. So looking at those statistics and knowing the urgent needs, we know that the people that we serve, um, we know that they need us to move faster. And sometimes it's hard to articulate all that goes on into making these decisions that have to be made, that we are in there working, we are in there fighting, but it is often uphill battles. But again, that's what we went for. And the more we can get, the more like-minded women that we can get to the table, the more power we have and the better off we are.
And you mentioned articulate. I believe communication is the key when trying to get your point across. I always say you don't have to agree with me, but at least we can sit at a table together and communicate. what are some of the ways in your capacity today, Dr. Pugh, that you reach across the table to try to communicate to those who might not want to listen?
At the table that I serve for the State Board of Education, that happens often. I mean, you could our meetings are public, just as Dr. Brown's are, and you will see. I will say I'm a Democrat. I have Republican counterparts, and you will see us having knockdown, drag out fights. But then when there are issues that we know we have to come together on, we come together. It's about the business of the people for me. And so having a track record, whether it was back in a few years ago when 38 public schools were going to be closed, working with my Republican counterparts, we went to an NAACP meeting together. I took him with me so that he could state his case for why he wasn't in agreement with the 38 schools. And I was able to state my case. There are some issues that are coming before us now as far as two different school departments of education that are being propped up. And so as my Republican board member, we're taking a look at it and seeing how it worked, how they see that it's not good for the future, and how we might see it's not good for the future. So definitely standing up for the people requires us to have tension, but at the same time, there are opportunities for us to work together. And again, it always has to be the people centered.
Yes, and I think that is lost um, when you have public servants. They seem to lose their way. They forget why they were elected. They were elected to serve the people. And I think sometimes in the red tape and bureaucracy of it all, the people are lost or put
Yeah.
last on the list. So, Commissioner Brown, in your capacity, how have you reached across the table to work with your counterparts?
Well, I tried to just be very intentional about listening to others, and especially listening to people who may have an opposing point of view. The other thing I tried to be very intentional about is going out into the district that I serve and making sure that I have conversations with, Republicans, Democrats, seniors, young people, everyone, so that we can try to figure out what it is we have in common and then amplify those commonalities. And so those can get translated into better policy and can translate into a better quality of life for everyone. And so it is sometimes difficult and it's uncomfortable being in some of those spaces where a room full of people are there and they don't look like you and they don't think like you, but you really, especially in today's climate, we have to be cognizant of the divisiveness and how people are behaving these days, and understanding the climate will help you to understand how much more courageous you have to be in stepping into those spaces, and then inviting them into our spaces too, so that they can hear what folks are thinking. And ultimately, it's about building relationships. And that's what, politics, one of my, the folks that I talked to who's been kind of mentoring me along said that, Dr. Brown, this whole field that you're in now is all about building relationships. And so that's what we have to do within our own party and outside of our party.
Building relationships, that's the key, and that's all about communication as well. And Commissioner Brown, um, and Dr. Pugh, you both talked about bringing those people who might not be familiar with your environment, bringing them into your environment so that they know that we're much more alike than we are different. And they come to understand that we are more alike and we have the same concerns that they do. And Commissioner Brown, you said building relationships. Is that easier being a woman? You know, being, we seem to be gentler, more compassionate. Is that easier building relationships and being a public servant?
Um, I would not say it's easier, because, speaking for, um, the space that I'm in right now, we have 9 county commissioners,
Mhm.
3 of whom are female, and one is an African American female, and that's me. And so, I don't think it's a matter of, um, you know, uh, what how you react in spaces. Again, it's a matter of listening to people, even though it's a room full of men, if you might find yourself in a room full of men. And that's where you have to really be strong and confident and lean into your own power. And that's how I think you can overcome those gender differences that might exist. It's, you mentioned earlier at the top in my bio that I was president of the Girl Scout Council. And I became keenly aware that uh, the Boy Scouts had a lot more money in their budget than the Girl Scouts had. And so it's about, men, and Dr. Pugh mentioned it earlier, making more money, than women. And therefore, they have this natural ability to attract more power because power and money kind of go together. And
Mm,
so that is one of the barriers, I would say, or obstacles into, getting the challenges, I would call it, but there is no challenge that cannot be overcome. So that's why I say the more you can build relationships with folks that don't look like you, the better you are at getting your beliefs and your values across. And the better chance you're going to have at holding hands together and getting things done as a team versus that separation that is merely based on a characteristic.
very good. Um, Dr. Pugh, what are the ways you stay grounded and take care of yourself in the position that you are currently serving? You have a lot of responsibility. So, and you always have to be ready because of who you are and what you stand for and the position that you hold presently. So, what are some of the ways you stay grounded to take care of yourself so that you always are ready?
So, I have made it a point to do my devotion every morning. Um, at least that's what I set out to do every morning. And there have been lulls, but I've gotten back to that. Try to make sure that I'm exercising every morning. Again, that one I've had longer lulls, but I will be getting back to that more routinely. But a friend's mom just recently sent me a text and she said, Pam, I got a blood pressure cuff for you. I want you to come get it and make sure you're checking your blood pressure daily. The other thing is when we can solve problems, when people bring me their problems and I can work out solutions, that is cathartic. That is actually helpful for me. So I jokingly say sometimes, and I'm probably a glutton for pain, but I jokingly say I love to work. I mean, I love to work if it means solving our issues, working towards hearing the problem and not staying there, and
Mhm.
being more so focused on how can I build coalition, how can I work within my connections to make sure that we are addressing our concerns. And
Yeah,
so solving problems and working sometimes can be um, soothing for me as well.
very good. Commissioner Brown, I pose the same question to you. How do you stay grounded and also just to take care of yourself in the because you also have uh, a tremendous amount of responsibility. You represent many people, and everyone is looking for your position to resolve an issue. How do you stay grounded with all of that? pressure?
Well, like Dr. Pugh, I do try to develop a routine, for my life. And so, being in politics, you really, no 2 days are alike. And so you constantly have different issues coming at you from all angles. And there's a lot you have to keep in your brain and be aware of all at the same time. Some of it you know about deeply, some of it you know about on the fringe. And so that takes some mental acuity, mental strength. And for me to maintain that level of mental strength, I like to read books. I try to be very intentional about reading a fiction book and then a nonfiction book. I try to trade off that way. And so I can escape to a different world and some other fantasy. I also have a little movie club where I can go and escape with some girlfriends and we watch a movie once a week,
Okay.
and that helps me get all the weight off of my mind.
Mhm.
I play golf in the summertime, hitting a little ball to try to get it in the hole and swinging it to try to, give that powerful drive helps me release a lot of stress
Mhm.
just by hitting that little ball. I also just try to spend time with friends, celebrating the people that are around me, and just making sure that their accomplishments are recognized, and taking flowers over to a person that I know, a soror who is in a nursing home right now,
Mhm.
and making sure that they feel like they are still being seen. And so those kinds of things are rewarding for me, just like solving challenges that are out in the community and working together to collaborate. That brings me joy and helps me keep me balanced.
Very good. So, would you say that women in public service handle stress differently than men? I'll pose that question to Dr. Pugh.
I knew you were coming this way. I have I don't know. I am not sure. I would imagine so. I think one of the things that I will say you brought up, Congresswoman Chisholm in the movie, and I had the opportunity to see it over the weekend, actually in New York City, and be a panelist with the Chisholm Legacy Project
Oh, wow.
after the viewing. And I started watching it by myself. I really needed to watch it by myself, being able to relate so well to many of the things that she was going through. I will say that we probably have to create our outlets, and we don't have all the outlets that men would have. And I say
Mhm.
that after Dr. Brown talks about her girlfriends, and I talked about my friend's mom with the blood pressure cuff, because I do have a good circle. I have two wonderful sisters. One was traveling with me yesterday, and
Yes, I met her.
great,
Mhm.
yeah, great friends who can tell me where to get the best wine, and will bring me a bottle of wine when I need it. But to really be able to talk to people who understand what it is that we're dealing with from all the various angles, and I would say watch the Chisholm Legacy Project movie, because it helps to understand the various and complex layers of women in leadership and in the political world have to deal with. Uh,
Yes.
and a lot of times, one of the scenes was, and I'm not going to give the movie away, but there were a lot of subtle scenes that spoke volumes to me. And one was after a conversation that Shirley had with her sister, and the sister not really knowing all the things that she was having to go through, but the sister gets up, walks out the door, and Shirley's there by herself. And the movie just like shows that. And for me, it spoke
Mhm.
volumes, because um, a lot of times people have no clue all the things that we're having to go through, from taking care of the household to having family members that we're the caretakers and caregivers for, trying to make sure that there is food in the refrigerator, and gas to go out and serve the people that you don't know if, like, to your point, it really
Mhm.
understand what you're doing, and then having to deal with these very complex issues. For me, it's 1.4 million school children, their parents, and their educators. And having all of these things on you, and people not really understanding the full dynamics of all of that. So, whereas men, I would say, people kind of think that they're going to a table to do something very important, and we've got to give them the room and the space to be able to come home and relax. I don't know that women have that, and and I don't know if people really understand all of the big things that we're really having to deal with and cannot articulate. Some things are just very difficult to articulate, and some things we just can't share.
Mhm.
So I would say that would be different in having those relief valves. Though we have good sister circles, it's kind of hard to really fully make sure everybody understands all the dynamics of all the worlds that and balls that we're juggling in the air. They may understand one, but
Mhm.
all of it coming together, I don't know that people would understand that for a woman as they would for a man, and give us the space and the grace in that place. I didn't mean to rhyme like that, but the
Oh,
space
yes.
and
Oh,
grace
very good.
in that place. Yeah. So yeah.
Yes, and I agree with that point. Oftentimes, women in public service with a leadership position, they run their office, but then they don't get to go home and relax. They have to go home, um, and run the household as well. And
Yeah.
I
And
believe sometimes, men have a luxury of going home. And I'm not going to say all men, but I think men in public servant positions, um, they have the luxury of going home and relaxing, you know. So, Dr. or Commissioner Brown, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say that I am very blessed and fortunate in that my husband and I operate as co-CEOs of our household.
Oh, amen.
And as co-CEOs, sometimes he has to take the lead and sometimes I have to take the lead. We just had our taxes done this week. He graciously took the lead on the taxes, and I supported him in that role by getting documents that were missing. Um, and so there are things like that where I believe that if you have a partner in your household who can help you navigate all the complexities of what you're going through as a public servant, then that can help in a lot of different ways. Um, in terms of women in this space and some of the differences, I'm not a psychologist, so I can't really, don't take this is just my personal opinion.
Absolutely.
Um, I believe that women, as mothers, and I'm using my own mother as an example, women know how to be diplomatic almost naturally.
Hmm.
And they have to teach children how to be diplomatic when it comes to sharing resources in the household. If there's one candy bar left on the table and you got 5 kids, who gets that
Right.
candy bar? So you have to moms bring that sense of diplomacy, the sense of fairness, the sense of equity, the sense of caring for all of their children, and those traits are transferable to the political space. And I'm not saying that men don't also have that, but I'm saying historically, women have had to do that in the household. But now that times are changing, quite a bit, I believe that you will see a lot of households who have co-CEOs,
Hmm.
where and it's not always 50-50. So, you have to take on the 60% or the 80% or even the 90% sometimes when it's necessary, and then rely on your partner to do the rest. And I think that's the key to being part of the key to being successful in politics, but definitely a key to being successful in a marriage too.
Absolutely. Having that 50-50 or 100-100, as my good friend would say, um, always supporting each other. And as you stated, Commissioner Brown, having that same fortitude when entering your position as a public servant, being diplomatic, knowing how to uh, argue, but not really arguing, just disagreeing.
Exactly.
Right. Okay. So,
Exactly.
just knowing how to work the room without hurting feelings or anything like that. So, women have that natural knack, and I agree with you both. So, going on to our next question, uh, Commissioner Brown, how can women support other women in government or public service roles?
Well, there are so many different ways that we can support one another. And I can give you a personal example. I worked for the Michigan Department of Education for several years during the time that Dr. Pugh was vice president on the State Board of Education. And so I got a chance to know her a little bit. And in wanting to support her, I invited her to participate in a program that I was doing to help close the achievement gap, and it was called a dining room discussion. And I specifically reached out to Dr. Pugh because I wanted her to be sort of the star of this show, and for her to have an opportunity and a platform to share her, not only the power and the position that she held, but to share some of her insights relative to the achievement gap. And so, because I was in a position to create that and I was able to pull her in, that was one way I think that I was able to support her. And who knows? And look at her now. She's the president of the State Board of Education.
That's
Um,
great. Mhm.
and just showing up to her fundraiser. I've written a check to support her candidacy, and so we there are many different ways that we can support one another. If you need a bottle of wine, Dr. Pugh, let me know.
I do. Um,
Dr. Pugh,
no,
same question.
and I'm so happy that you brought that up, Dr. Brown, because you're now Commissioner Brown, and like that feels like that was so long ago. But yes, you did, and I met some amazing women during that. So you connected me to people as well. And I think, to the previous question, again, the more people that we can show up at the table, that we can pull a seat up for at the table, the more that we are able to have these conversations and know how to support one another. Um, so for me, I was the chair of the Democratic Women's Caucus here in the state of Michigan. I put on opportunities for young girls as well as seasoned women. And I see that we're frozen. Is okay. I need to look like you're frozen. So
We're good. Yep,
okay.
go ahead.
So putting on seminars for young women as well as seasoned women who were entering or wanting to enter the political space, and putting women who were already elected in front of them for them to just interact with. And was second chair of the National Federation of Democratic Women, doing the same, but always trying to make sure that as I move forward, that other women are moving forward. But also to Dr. Brown's point, it's unfortunate that there is just so much money in order to be able to get to these spaces where we are able to represent. And so making sure that we are writing those checks, making sure that we are checking in on one another, making sure that we are calling and saying, hey, we've got this blood pressure cuff for you. Make sure you're checking your blood pressure. But just being a listening ear, a lot of times will do it, but also hearing the dreams and the aspirations of women as they do seek out these offices. I will just say one more thing is that I was at the opening. It was a husband and wife a team that opened up a restaurant, a GQ. So I'll give a shout out to GQ's on Michigan in Saginaw. Amazing food, and it was a family affair. But there was one young lady who was sitting there, and she said, "You know, Pam, I'm interested in running for office. I don't know what I want to run for." So I just sat down next to her and just listened to her. And just she was telling me about where she was in her education, that she had just finished her master's, but also looking to run for office, and just trying to just listen to her, see what was best for her, but just encouraging her to just go for it. So again, just being a listening ear, and always offering that bottle of wine and writing checks.
Yes, and you touched on mentorship. Mentorship is such an important tool that women can use to support one another. Um, have you ever mentored anyone in the position that you're sitting in currently, Commissioner Brown, and as you said, you've only been in the position for 11 months, but maybe internships, things of that nature that you make available, and you utilize that tool to support other women who are seeking, have the same aspirations that you do.
Well, many people don't know about this, but there is a junior county commissioner board,
Hmm.
and it's made up of high school students from around the county. And so there are 9 dynamic high school students that serve on the Genesee County Youth Commission. And every year, this is facilitated by the Michigan State University Extension Service. And every year they select a topic of interest to help, a political topic. This year, the junior commission has decided to work with blight in our community. And they come and present their findings and research and information to the full county board of commissioners. And I can say I'm very encouraged and hopeful because the team of young commissioners that we have right now is very diverse. And so we all try to mentor them so that they can take over for us one day. And I know I won't be a county commissioner forever, but I do want to make sure I cultivate others to be able to step into this role. And the pathway to getting to a political position can be varied. You look at Shirley Chisholm; she was a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You look at you don't have to, the traditional pathway, it seems, is to go to law school or to take public service courses or major in public administration, but there are non-traditional ways and paths that you can go to in order to arrive at the space that you're in. I was a bank vice president for several years. Then I got into education, and so I regard this as kind of my third act in my career. And, I didn't really have I had mentors in my educational space. Dr. Julianne Prinsinski, I'll give her a shout out. She was the president of Baker College. She mentored me along the way when I was working on my doctorate, and she was an invaluable mentor for me. And, in terms of any space that you want to get in, it's a matter of finding someone who, number one, you admire and respect, and then number two, who may have the time to really coach you along the way. Because being a mentor, there's a job description to being a mentor, and if you want to do it right, I would say. And so I know one of the things is, you don't know, if you know somebody who's far away, you don't really know how to get in touch with them. If you want them for a mentor, you will find a way to do it. I remember being in a giant conference room in Lansing one day years ago, and one of the keynote speakers was the founder of Two Men in a Truck, a woman who started this with her 2 sons. And I walked up to her after the conference was over, and I said, "Would you mind being my mentor?" Because I wanted to be an entrepreneur at that point in my life. And she didn't even hesitate. She said, "Of course, I would be your mentor." And it shocked me, number one, that somebody of her stature would say yes to little old me. But she did it. And we've been in contact now for over 25 years.
Mm.
And so sometimes you have to just reach out, be bold, find the person who has the skill set and the experiences that you want to get into, and just ask them. I think you'd be surprised that they might say yes.
Excellent. Dr. Pugh, same question, mentorship. Have you ever been a mentor, or how do you think women in public servant roles should reach out for mentoring?
Right. So one, as I talked about being a part of the Democratic Women's Caucus, that actually was all about mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
But I would hope that every step of my life has been about having someone, um, and I can't really just say it's younger people. It's just someone who can glean anything from me, and I've learned from younger people. I've learned from those who are more seasoned, but absolutely, that is just a vital part of my whole presence, is that everything that I do, I'm taking along someone who could do it bigger and better than I'm doing it. I was a member of the Young Dems here in Saginaw, and was our executive director. And I could also say, being a part of campaigns since, feels like almost since I was walking, my parents would have us involved in making sure we were a part of campaigns and getting people elected. And I would always bring my friends with me. And they would always joke about how I enjoyed campaigning. And so would bring friends along there, but also making sure that I'm bringing people along as to understand why we're getting to the table. What's the policy changes that we can make. When I worked for myself for 6 years, always had a younger person that was working with me. My nieces and nephews and godchildren can write on their transcripts, or I'm sorry, their resumes, that they have some form of policy experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yes, I have definitely been about mentorship. My everyday life, I hope, is about mentoring and bringing others along.
Excellent, excellent. And as you said, Dr. Pugh, mentorship doesn't always have to be some elaborate, sitting at the table. It could simply be taking a young person, a young girl, to the voting booth with you
Mhm.
and showing her how to vote.
Right.
It's very simple. Doesn't have to be, going out to lunch with someone and, what is your, five, your goals for the future. It could be simple, and it can start very young. Showing young people how to campaign, or volunteering at a rally or anything like that, handing out pamphlets. Simple. So I agree. Very good. So we have about 4 minutes left. This hour has really gone by, but I just wanted to end on this question. And maybe you can also, when you respond, incorporate your remarks to end our discussion, our chat today. But how would having more women represented in the legislative branch and government create change in current laws that are affecting women in a negative way? And I'm thinking about, our reproductive health. How would women being more present in government change some of these laws? I will start with you, Commissioner Brown.
Well, that's a really important question, first of all, and naturally very relevant to what's going on right now in the current election. Um, I think that it's not just about having more women at the table, it's about having the right women at the table.
Mm,
Um, and because not all women think alike, right?
correct.
Uh, And so getting the right women at the table who are able to articulate effectively and with diplomacy, um, and articulate with compassion, with compelling narratives about what a woman's body goes through and how a woman's body is different from a man's body. And, having those women who command a voice at the table where it matters so that they can get more male allies to speak about women's health and the fact that we need to restore the right to our body. I think it takes a very, very skillful communicator and a relationship builder to get all of those allies and to communicate the importance of the rights that women have. We haven't always had the right to vote, and so we have to make sure we protect that as women too. And so it's a matter of being vocal. It's a matter of being involved in the process, whether you march, whether you write letters, whether you make phone calls. All of that has to do with making a change in this particular space with this particular issue, because women can't do it by themselves. We have to enlist a critical mass of people to turn this around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. Dr. Pugh.
Yeah, I gave us a statistic earlier that our children we have high infant mortality rate here in this country as a whole. 4.2 white babies in the state that are dying per live birth that are dying. That's too many. But then that number goes up to 15 for Black children, 15 deaths per live birth. In the city of Flint, it goes up to 19.
Mm.
And when we have issues like that, we know that representation matters. We need moms at the table. We need women at the table who can better understand the upstream, the systemic issues that are driving these horrible and horrific statistics. And I just think that it's going to take women to make systemic change. When we look at women and moms, they're more likely to be the ones that are taking care of the home. So when we talk about policies such as paid family leave or medical leave, we need the voice of women. When we talk about enshrining reproductive rights and pushing back on abortion being relitigated here in Michigan, we know we need the voices of women that are showing up at the table. When we look at our children who are dying in some communities, as I mentioned, the Black community at 5 times the rates of other communities, we know that we need to have the voice of women who are showing up and making sure that we make the changes that need to be made. And these are urgent changes. And as women, we come with that approach of urgency.
I just want to thank you both for just enlightening our audience on the importance of being public servants. You both do an excellent job in your fields, and hopefully someone in our audience will have the courage to run for an office. And as you said, Dr. Brown, it's not just being a woman running for office, but being the right woman.
That's right.
So we want to make sure that our audience come November, do your due diligence, look up the candidates who are on the ballot and vote for the right women.
And
So
there's August before we get to November.
Yes,
August
Au-
6th before we get to the note.
August 6th,
All that shit.
absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you for the
Yes.
correction. So, again, thank you both. I would like to thank the audience, our audience for participating in this midday chat, and we will see you next time. Have a great afternoon and be blessed.
You too. Thank you.
Thank you.